Oh, you're gonna skip the intro video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, loading. Loading. This just goes to buffer zone. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm MrSpirit, and with me is...
Fender Duckfing. Nice to meet y'all community aces out there.
And today we're doing the starter mission, the very tutorial basis of Warframe. This is going to help you get your basics down of what you need to think of while coming in. So up on screen right now is a choose your Warframe screen. You will get this screen after watching the intro video after you have signed up for the game, downloaded it, and started into it. So we have 3 Warframes to choose from. We have Excalibur, we have Mag, and we have Volt. Now, there used to be Loki, they removed him and switched him for Volt. He was a bit more tricky to play. Volt's a bit more user-friendly. So, we're going to start with Excalibur. Excalibur in himself is a balanced Warframe in both offense and defensive skills, and has the ability to get around easy. He's what the game recommends everyone chooses. However, they do give you the other 2 to choose from. Now, in my opinion, I would recommend Excalibur just because he's very user-friendly. His skills are very easy to use, and he's that perfect balance for a start. Later on, you may find that you want to try Mag or Volt. Don't worry, you will be able to get them within game. But Excalibur's my recommendation. His slash dash skill allows you to cut through enemies by running right through them. Your radial blind allows you to blind them, giving you a chance to get to cover or finish them off. You have your radial javelin, which isn't the best, but it does high damage to a few targets. So it's not bad, not the best. And then his most powerful skill, the Exalted Blade, where he summons a melee weapon of pure light and it shoots beams that go through so much wall and will travel through enemies as well, doing high amounts of damage.
Yep. Especially in early levels of gameplay, when you play as Excalibur and keep the ability activated, you pretty much enter kind of a god mode. However, little disclaimer here, as it's a channeled ability, it will constantly drain your energy as long as you have it running. So if you want to focus on your Exalt Blade, you're gonna want to try to not overuse the other abilities, just so you can save up that energy for the moment where it matters the most.
Exactly. It will constantly drain, and later on you can build with mods to have it last a long time. However, we will talk about mods at a different time. This is for you guys to learn about the starter weapons and the starter frames. So next we have Mag. Mag is a utility frame. She's not meant for frontline combat all the time, and she is definitely not meant to be hit a lot. She has some of the lowest health and shield starting out. However, her abilities make up for it with being able to affect gravity and magnetism. Mag's specialty is pulling enemies towards you into melee range and then finishing them off while they're on the ground, or magnetizing them so bullets won't hit you, they'll go into the magnet bubble and hit the enemy that you magnetized. Overall, Meg is not a bad frame. She is a good frame. but you have to be willing to adjust to that playstyle of being in the back. Uh, the best way and my favorite way to play Mag is using a rifle of some sort, whether it be an assault or a sniper rifle, just to keep range on enemies, and carrying a powerful sidearm such as the Lex or a Bronco, something that's got enough kick to it for anything that gets up close that I can't easily gun down. And for melee, I usually take a long range melee such as a polearm, being the bow staff, to be able to fight enemies at a melee distance that is good, so they're not able to melee at me back.
Right. Me personally, I would not recommend to pick Mag as your first frame at all, except you have some people that you're already going to be playing with a lot. Because as Spirit stated, you're gonna try to want to hang back a bit when you play that utility frame. And if you start out, your friends list gonna be empty, usually. Also, Mag is, out of all of the three starter frames, Mag is the one that you can most easily build, because she drops from a very low level boss enemy, unlike Excalibur, who really only appears very much later on in the game, or Volt, which in order to build you'll have to join a clan for.
Yeah. So, we'll quickly go over Meg's skills here. Pull. Magnetic force that pulls enemies towards you. It stuns them, and it brings them in melee range. Perfect for finishing off either a weak foe, or getting a lot of damage onto a heavily armored foe, and then running, pulling them again, and keeping them on the ground. You have Magnetize. Create a magnetic field around a target, ensnaring them. It puts them up hovering in the air, and it deals damage over time to them. And the field reacts to any bullets and shards, anything that's deadly to you, and polarizes them into that field. And enemies that shoot at it will shoot at the enemy inside that bubble, giving you an extra layer of protection if you put one between you and the enemies. You have Polarize. You emit an energy pulse that depletes enemy shields and armor, creating shards which become deadly when mixed with Magnetize, and shields of allies touched by the pulse are restored. Now, this is a ranged ability where if you activate it, anyone within the LOS of it, so line of sight, and it crosses over them, will cause shields to deplete, being the Corpus, or armor, being the Grenier. And if there are an enemy that's magnetized, they'll have damage brought in upon them, and any allies will have any weakened shields will have them restored. It makes you sort of a healer frame in a bit, but not a full out healer. And then you have Crush. You magnetize all the enemy's bones and collapse them upon themselves. This is her absolute ultimate ability. It's a great crowd control ultimate against a multitude of enemies. It brings them all together, and then she literally crushes their bones and throws them to the ground. She's the great utility frame for everyone. But she's a bit more advanced than Volt and Excalibur.
Plus, as I already stated, you can build her pretty much early game, so if you get yourself one of the other starter frames, you can just easily build her a couple hours later on.
Yeah. So next and last we have Volt. Volt is both an offensive frame and a utility frame together. He's a hybrid. He uses electricity to damage his enemies, and he uses electricity to build shields and speed boost his allies. So he's got the offensive skills to help out, and he's got the utility spells, which will definitely help your team, especially in a dire situation. I don't know how many times an electric shield has saved my life, but it is very valuable.
Ask Quango.
Yeah. Volt, he's sort of the, okay, Excalibur seems too easy for me, but Meg seems too hard. He's the go-to in between. So if you feel like you want to be offensive but have a bit more defensive abilities and utility for a team, Volt is definitely a go-to frame. He's only unlocked through the dojo or a clan when if you choose another Warframe. We do have him on build in our dojo for you guys when you join us. So you'll be able to buy his blueprints. However, it does take in-game credits to buy them. So if you don't wish to spend credits, this is a great way to start, is go with Volt. However, if you don't choose to, he is available to you later if you feel like you wish to try him. I would have to recommend Volt to those who like being a bit of ranged, but being able to get in close combat. Good weapons for him are definitely shotguns and rifles. Burst rifles are very deadly with him because you can shock, 3-round burst, shock another enemy, 3-round burst, and keep up a pattern. He's very good at dealing with mechanical enemies and the corpus because their shields do not like electricity and magnetism. So overall, he's definitely a good one if you want that range utility. For secondary weapons, you could carry anything with him, be it a silent weapon like a kunai, or you could carry a pistol with him, a mini shotgun, a mini rifle. He's good with all secondaries. And for melee, he's definitely good with a range type melee versus a close range melee. So a bow staff or a long heavy sword, something that's got the range to it, because he'll be able to shock enemies at a range and get in close enough within that melee range to hit them versus having to get really close and having the shock run up on you. Now, when it comes to his abilities, we have Shock. He launches a bolt of electricity, stuns, deals high damage to a target, and then anyone nearby, it does chain lightning to them and zaps them as well. So it's a good high damage attack along with a little AoE control.
The good thing about it is, because it's electricity, it can always have the chance to have an electricity proc, which will stun the enemy for a bit. Not for long, but for a bit.
Yeah.
Which, if you get lucky, pretty much eliminates any threat from the enemy crowd for a good 1 or 2 seconds, which is a lot during combat. And as Spirit already stated, this ability is pretty neat to chain with burst rifles, because you can burst, then use your zap, and then go back to bursting.
Yeah. His second ability, Speed. Gain a brief boost of movement speed and place a hasten coil, which does the same for allies. So what it does is a coil will drop on the ground that allies can run over to get a speed buff if they wish to. Before, it used to just outright give everyone the speed buff. Some people got annoyed at it. I never really had a problem with it because it was always coordinated. But people make mistakes, things go wrong, and it throws people off. So their new ability is a bit better, but either way, everyone can get a speed boost from your speed ability. And it's not a small amount of speed, it is a lot of speed. This is a great getaway tool, say if you're being chased by heavy gunners or big heavy armored guys with rocket launchers. There's good uses for it. His third ability, Electric Shield. He deploys a rectangular shield that absorbs all incoming damage from forward. And shooting from behind it gives you additional damage into the enemies.
Yep, The additional damage into the enemies is a 50% electricity damage bonus and 200% critical damage bonus. That means every crit that you land through that is going to be plus 200%, which is going to be a total of 3 times as strong as usually,
Yeah.
which is very powerful.
Yes. You can also now pick up the shield as well when you're close by and walk with it. This makes you great for getting in on turret guns that may be a problem for your team. However, while you have the shield picked up, it will drain energy. But this makes you a great front man for the team to get them in there instead of just sitting back and spamming and hopefully someone can get close enough.
If you get a Rhino on your team with a high energy build, that person, because Rhino is a tanky Warframe, would be the perfect person to pick up that shield for you. Because after the shield depletes, he's still gonna be tanky enough to take a lot of damage.
Yeah. And finally, we have Discharge. Paralyze nearby hostiles with electric damage and also shock any approaching enemies. So this is a giant AoE CC, crowd control. It holds enemies in place and shocks them so they are stuck where they're at, which is perfect. It gives your team an opportunity to either flee or clear them out, and any enemies coming nearby will get a chain shock off of them. So it gives you this little area where it's safe for me to either decide to run or stay in, and any enemies who wish to approach are going to suffer same effects.
Which is going to instantly give your team the upper hand, especially if you get some attackers behind that would usually not go in but have strong crowd control capabilities. For example, an Amber, but we're gonna talk about different Warframes later on.
Yeah. So, since these are our 3 starter frames, Excalibur is what I recommend. Mag, I recommend for utility, and Volt, I recommend for someone who wants a little challenge, but not a huge challenge.
Also, for someone who doesn't only wish to be to have brutal strength in his abilities, but rather wants to get the more witty upper hand by using his abilities.
So, since this is my account and I know what's going on in that, I am going to choose Volt because I like his abilities. They're great at the start for me. So, at the very start, they're just going to teach you how to use abilities. They don't actually teach you anything right off the bat. It's just use ability and spam. So that's the first part, is choosing your Warframe, learn how the ability works. Then you'll see these little messages on our side that tell us how to control our Warframe. So we hold left control for me, it'll be different for you, to run, and space to jump. So first off, we come to our melee weapon choices. We have the Mark 1 bow and the Skana. The Skana is a short-range sword that deals slash damage. It's great for infested enemies, and if you are Excalibur, you do get a damage bonus for using a Skana or dual Skana.
Right. Slash damage also hurts any unarmored enemy. Everything that is just pure flesh, it will just slice through. That means, especially in early levels, you're gonna have the easiest time using the Skana because most enemies have some kind of flesh in low levels. Yeah. Slash damage has the special ability to also cause the enemy to bleed if you're lucky, which is going to give you some additional damage.
Yeah. Overall, it's a good pick for Excalibur, it's a terrible pick for Mag, and it's a fair pick for Volt. So our other weapon, the Mark 1 bow. This is a weaker version of just the bow. you can still get the bow itself, but the Mark 1 is a starter weapon, and it's fair. It deals high impact damage, which has a chance to stun enemies upon hit.
Impact damage is extremely strong against any machine type enemies, like robots. Also, impact damage is what's going to be depleting Corpus photon shields easiest. So, if you want to play Mag, the high range of the bow, combined with its abilities to just shred through anything Corpus related, because Corpus use machinery and shields, are going to combine well with her pretty much abilities being set up to just shred through Corpus anyway.
With Volt, it's definitely good for the extra range, because with your shock, you can run up to the enemies, and you don't have to get point blank, and you can still hit them with your weapon. And with Excalibur, it's either or. He doesn't get a damage bonus, but it gives him a bit of range in the trade-off. So since I'm playing Volt, I am going to take the bow, because it is very useful early game. So next we're going to move up and learn to melee. We melee with our E button. It's easy enough, and it does great damage. The Grineer just run in, they die. Next you learn to crouch, to get around, to get under gates. Then if you sneak up on an enemy quietly, you'll get the chance to press E for a stealth attack, which is an instant kill or extremely high damage, and it allows you for a stealth bonus, which means your next kill that's stealth is even more experience. So the stealthier you are, the more experience you can gain. However, you don't have to be stealthy. So now we're at our secondary weapons. We have the Lato and the Mark 1 Kunai. Now, the same rules apply for the Mark 1 Kunai. There is a Kunai version, but the Mark 1 is the starter one that they give you. So I'll go over the Lato since that was the only secondary weapon that they had when I first started. The Lato,
I'm gonna go over the Kunai, because I'm the one who picked it when I started.
Yeah. So the Lato is a pistol that does all-around damage. It does impact, puncture, and slash. It's very low. It has a low fire rate, but it is loud. So if you were looking for a quiet weapon, you'd go with the Kunai. If you were looking for a loud weapon, the Lato. It has a decent fire rate and a decent ammo consumption rate. So if you pulled this out and wanted to kill stuff, you could, if you modded it right, and you'd be able to use it for a good chunk of the system until you built a better secondary weapon. It's very basic. It's an all-around weapon. It's good for all three frames, so you'd have no troubles picking up the Lato and running with it.
Right. The Mark 1 Kunai, on the other hand, is a silent weapon, and like the Lato, which is a pistol, they are thrown. You're gonna have to aim a bit further above on higher ranges, because they're gonna drop. They fly a bit in an arc. Not a lot, but a bit. They primarily deal puncture damage. Puncture damage is extremely strong against armor, which is something that Grineer uses. Also, every hit against the Grineer, because they are weak against it, is going to stagger them, except if it's heavy Grineer units. They have a fast fire rate, they can reload very quickly, and they're silent because it's only throwing out knives. So if you want a stealthy approach where you can just chain stagger easy targets among the Grineer especially, the Kunai is the way to go, especially because its primary puncture damage is going to be very helpful against the Grenier's armor, which is going to usually reduce any incoming damage against them.
So, since I like doing stealth missions a lot, I will take the kunai with me, since it is silent. So once we have our weapons, we head out, and it tells us how to aim with our right click for an iron sight, and our left click for our shoot. So as you see, I aimed a little bit above his head, thrown it, and I hit him in the face with it. I hit him in the body with it. It has some fall off, so as you can see, I am compensating for some shots. And since it is projectile based, I have to lead my targets as well. It just takes a little bit of practice, but you can get good at throwing it fast. So, if you want something that's silent and good for moving, the kunai is definitely your way to go. So next we learn how to slide while moving. I have mine set to shift. The default is control. However, you can change this in the options menu. This is a great way for traveling around and dodging attacks, or sliding into cover.
Take what you can. You will require resources to build yourself into a diverse and effective warrior.
So now we're in an area full of resource lockers. So these contain materials that you will use for building. They are very valuable, and at the start, opening these are very, very valuable. Take your time through levels if there's no timer on it, and open as much as possible. So
Any Warframe, any weapon that you want to craft, that you want to get, is going to need a hell of a lot of these materials, and especially early game, you're not going to have a lot of materials, so if you want to be able to expand your arsenal quickly so you can keep up with the different damage types against different types of enemies, it is very much necessary to just keep an eye open so you can gain the needed materials as quickly as possible.
yeah. Materials include credits, which is the currency, which is also used for buying the blueprints, along with anything like ferrite, rubido, argon crystals. Materials will range in rarity from very common to rare. So our next little area is
There's the extraction ship.
an area where we dodge damage. This is where we learn to avoid being attacked. We also learn how to block incoming damage or parry it.
You're not ready to face war
So
now.
we hold down our
Use your
F button
to block the
for our
enemy
melee,
inside.
and we use right click to block damage. Now we're using it to block Vor's damage that he's putting in on us.
My decrepit heart is pounding. This one is stronger than the rest. Lock the area down. This tender.
So now it's going to mark our map with an area we have to go
Get
to.
the console and release the lockdown.
It's an easy enough to follow, and your map will point. Your mini map will point with an up arrow if it's above you, a down arrow if it's below you, or no arrow if it's on the same floor as you. Pressing M will give you a larger map. So from here, we need to get up top to a console. And right now we have to fend off some enemies so we can get to the console and have no problem activating it. Because activating while under fire is never fun.
I've marked the console on your map. You
Okay,
need to access it
so
to
we've
release the
gotten
lockdown.
through that.
Get out of there, Tenno.
If you right click while you jump, you will go into a slow motion type animation. This makes it harder for enemies to shoot you, but it makes it easier for you to shoot them while in the air. That completes our damage
That
obstacle
tunnel flows
course.
like fire over the battle terrain. Do you remember how to dash across walls?
So next, we're going to learn to double jump and dash across a wall. So to jump across the wall, we hold space, and you can see he jumps along the wall. It's nice, simple, it's easy. Anyone can do it. Take your time, practice in this little area because there are no enemies. It is good to practice these little skills here or there. You also have your double jump, which is self-explanatory. You get a second jump while you're in the air. You also have your wall jump, where you can jump onto a wall and hold space, and it'll bring you upward instead of sideways. And this is great for climbing to great heights. You also have your bullet jumping, but we'll cover that in a more advanced guide. So once you get your basics down, we move on to our primary weapons.
Tenno, you cannot survive without arming yourself. Choose a weapon before we continue.
So let's move on up to the weapons since I apparently passed them. We have the Mark I Bratton and the Mark I Paris. Once again, they are weaker versions of the normal ones, but they are a great starter and are great for mastery ranking. So I'll be covering the Bratton.
And I'll be covering the Mark I Paris.
So we'll start with the Bratton here. The Bratton is an assault rifle. It has high puncture and high impact damage and low slash damage. It's your basic all-around assault rifle. It carries a 60 clip magazine with 540 in the reserve. It's a great starter weapon. It is loud, so it will alert enemies nearby that you're firing it. You can mod it for silence, but you won't have that mod right off the start. This is a great starter. It's a good all-around weapon for all three frames because it's a rifle. It allows you to fight at distance and at close range if need be. I would recommend it for anyone starting out because the ammo drop is definitely great. There's a lot of ammo that does drop for rifles. And for the Paris,
The Mark I Paris, on the other hand, is a bow, which means it will use bow ammunition. Bow ammunition for the Paris comes from sniper ammunition, which drops a lot more rarely than the rifle ammunition, which means that especially early on, you're often going to be stuck with using your secondary weapon if you choose to take the Paris. However, as it's a bow, it is fully silent, except you miss a shot and the arrow lands near an enemy, then that enemy is going to hear it. But any hit shot is fully silent. It deals puncture damage, so it just shreds through the armor of Grenier. And it has a high damage at full charge and innate punch through. Punch through means that it, if it hits an enemy, kills him, it's just gonna shoot right through him and hit another enemy. So if you're smart and line up your shots while being undetected, you can at times kill multiple enemies with just a single arrow. This weapon is best for people that try to either play it stealthily on their own or try to be in the backline, take out key targets like heavy armored enemies that would survive and be a hassle for the rest of your team, or any healer or anyone at a turret that is troubling your team. I would recommend the Paris most, in my opinion, for Mag, especially if you combine it, especially if you play Mag with some friends, because that will allow you to stay back and give the deciding shots. And staying back is also gonna just give you time to properly line up your shots without being troubled by the enemies too much.
I
So
also have to chime in that is a projectile-based weapon, so you have to lead your shots.
yeah. However, unlike the kunai, I have to aim as much upwards as you do with the kunais, because a fully charged shot is going to be a lot more straight than the curvy kunai shots. So always keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. So, just give you guys a little example. The bow does fire pretty much in a straight line till a certain point, or if you give no charge, it just starts arcing downwards. But I will be taking the Bratton with me, since the Bratton combines well with Volt's shock ability. And since the Bratton's fully automatic, I can hold down the trigger if I want to, or I can hold down for a few seconds and make my own burst rifle out of it. So, your R key will reload any weapons you have at any time, and pressing F will cycle between primary and secondary, and holding F will cycle between melee and range. So on our final part here, we're going to our ship, and we're getting ready for our final battle.
Disengage the suppression system so we can restart the ship. You'll have to bypass the security on that panel.
So what we have in here, front of here, is a hack mechanism. This is a Grineer hack. There is also a Corpus hack. They both act differently. With this one, it's a simple minigame of pressing space over top of the lock. With Corpus, it's a puzzle. They're not hard, it's just a bit annoying sometimes in a rush. The Grineer, I find, are very user-friendly. So, once we disengage the locks, it becomes just a matter of survival at the end of this tutorial mission.
Enemy reinforcements are here. Ship Cephalon, we require immediate extraction.
The operator is in danger? I will need a few moments to cycle the engines.
So, with my Bratton, I'm able to deal with people at long range, so they don't get close. You could do the same thing with the Paris, but you'd be taking them out one at a time unless they lined up. Then you could take it out at most 2 at a time without modding the Paris. This makes the Bratton very friendly.
The ship is ready. It's time to leave.
And that ends our tutorial mission. Hopefully this helps you choose the frames and weapons that are going to suit you. And we'll see you in our next tutorial video.
Good luck making the Lotus proud, and don't forget, always stay the ace of your team.